Hi everyone, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp, and today I'm going to share some mixed media card ideas with the April 2025 card kit called Butterfly Blossoms. So here I am going to show you applying some of the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium to one of the beautiful Paper Rose Bees and Butterflies pattern papers in the kit, and over that I am then going to layer some torn Tim Holtz Idea-ology Serendipity collage paper and then do a nice coat of the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, whatever was left on my paintbrush, over the top and let it dry. Let me show you how I created that. And I am doing 3 of these in today's video. So on my third piece of pattern paper trimmed to 4 by 5 3/4, I am going to go ahead and take one of my collage sheets and using a paintbrush dipped in water. Yes, I just took my Spellbinders Mister, and because that was just plain water, dipped my paintbrush in it, and I'm drawing a line on the Ranger collage paper, or pardon me, the Tim Holtz collage paper. The reason I'm doing this is it's going to help give me a very controlled edge to tear. It's basically printed tissue paper, and this way I am not getting a wonky kind of tear. I'm controlling right where I want that paper to tear. So you're going to see me pulling right against that line. It is a very, very quick and easy way to determine exactly where you want to do this. And then I'm holding it up next to my background so that I know exactly where I want that tear line to be so that it fits within the 4 by 5 3/4. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and take the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium included in the kit. So far, everything I've used is included in the kit. I'm going to brush this all over my pattern paper. It does dry completely clear and not sticky at all. Place the collage paper on top. Oh, I didn't like that so quickly. I'm going to work quickly here. I'm going to straighten that up, and then over the top, I'm going to just take whatever Ranger Multi-Matte Medium is left on my paintbrush and smooth it all over the surface. Perfect. We're going to set this aside to dry. It does dry very quickly. And then we're going to take some background panels. Now, my goal with the card kit is always to use as many of the components as possible. In fact, I only didn't use 2 pieces, I think. So what I'm going to do is take the white cardstock and using the Postage edge dies from Simon Says Stamp. These were in my stash. I just pulled them out. I die cut 6 of these panels from the white cardstock, and I am going to stamp some of the beautiful butterfly blossoms images onto these panels. We're creating a base here for our beautiful design and sentiment. On each of these panels, I'm going to stamp one of the floral images, a sentiment, and 1 or 2 butterflies, depending on how much space I had. You could do all of them the same if you wanted to. I really love during a crafting session to make the most of it and see how many wonderful cards I can make in this and how many of these beautiful images I can use. Truth be told, I was super anxious to see how all of these stamped and stenciled up, so I went ahead and did several different ones. Let's go ahead and pull that up and work on our second one. Now, I did realize pretty quickly that I forgot to stamp a butterfly. We will come back to that here in just a minute. In the card kit, you are getting the 6 by 8 clear stamp set and the 6 by 6 stencil set that coordinates back to this design. I love that this has a coordinating stencil set so that you can easily color in your images without the use of markers. You can use your favorite ink pads, any color you love, and just go to town. You have them colored so quickly. Now, I did flip this one upside down just because that very tall floral is hanging off the edge of my background panel. I did try to ground each one of these stamped images by stamping it off either the right or left side or the top or both in this case, just barely. There's hardly anything hanging off the side, but by doing that, it does help ground the image quite a lot. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to look at my sentiments. And the happy birthday in this case, I just feel like goes, any of the bigger sentiments actually, go too far over the larger greeting. So we're going to go with the With Sympathy here from the Butterfly Blossoms stamp set, which works perfectly. And we're also going to stamp a couple of these smaller butterflies. I did switch up my ink. So let's talk about the ink choices that I used here. I ended up using the Nocturne ink for my sentiments. It is a beautiful, bold ink. Now, it is a kind of pigment ink, so I did not want to stencil over the top of it in the event that some of the black would move when I use my blending brush. So what I opted to do instead for anything I would be using a blending brush with the stencil and the inking, I'm going to use the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink instead. Here you saw me changing out the height, the flower image because of the height. I wanted to use one of the bigger greetings. I actually opted for Thinking of You, and I am leaving room up at the top for this one. This floral is just a little bit shorter than most of the others, and so it naturally lent itself very easily for one of the bolder sentiments. We're going to stamp this, and then of course we will be adding a butterfly too. The butterflies are going to be a great opportunity to stamp off the edge as needed. So that is another option. And I'm going to flip this because I do want that butterfly to hang off the edge. I find it really helpful to just kind of turn whatever I'm stamping inside of my MISTI. Okay, once we have everything stamped, it is time for some stenciling fun. We're going to start with just one of the images, so I'll move everything else out of the way. We're going to grab our stencil and we are going to start ink blending. Now because all of the different florals, leaves, everything are in a single image, if you will, in this stencil set. There are not layering stencils for this. I am going to use detail blending brushes to help control exactly where the ink goes. Using Heather and Violet inks, I did add a little purple to this one. And then I'm using Artichoke and Kale for the greenery on any of these panels where I am stenciling in the leaves. We're going to use these same color combinations for any leaves throughout. This is the only card that I did opt to use the Heather and Violet purple inks on. I don't think I used it on any of the other butterflies, maybe, but none of the other flowers did I do that, but I don't think it takes away. In fact, purple and yellow together is gorgeous, and I really like how it turned out. Then I'm using Butter and Honey inks as well as a little nutmeg for my yellow flowers. Now, obviously, because I did opt to use the pattern papers included in the April 2025 kit, those papers all have lots of yellows and greens, definitely just leaning into that vibe. My backgrounds are yellow and green. And because of that, I want my panels to match. I didn't want to go rogue and do, bright pinks or something like that. So any colors I add in addition to my yellows are going to be just a little bit of our purples. Oh, I did use it a little bit for the butterfly, and a little teeny touch of teal, which almost has a green tint to it. I'm going to use the Dew Positively Saturated ink. So again, not deviating too far from this color palette. I think by limiting the color palette, it also helps with making sure everything is cohesive in your finished design. Okay, I wasn't super thrilled with my butterfly here, but we're going to make it work. I didn't love my purple and yellow blending, but it's okay. I'm going to go on the tips of the butterfly and just add in a little bit of this dew color. I don't even know if that was like the most successful thing I did, but it's going to be fine. Actually, just to be completely transparent, I really thought maybe I had messed that up, but in the end, when I go back over this and add the sparkle texture paste, I didn't even remember that I didn't love how that turned out to begin with. The colors are going to fade and mute just a little bit as they dry, and that's kind of a gift, really. Okay, let's go ahead and take our next image and let's stencil the florals and the butterfly in this set. Very simple. You can see the detail blending brushes work great so that I'm not having to worry that I'm going to overlap with a bigger brush into some smaller areas. Again, I highly recommend some sort of a small detailer brush. There's lots of different ones out there just to be able to control exactly where the ink goes. Using honey, kale, and nutmeg for my flowers, then using artichoke and kale for any of my leaves. Then we're going to do the flower here where we use really whatever yellow is left on my blending brush and a little bit of the dew color to give this butterfly a little bit of that minty effect. Oh, so pretty. You can see how easy these stencils are to use as well. So easy, very quick. And an additional purchase, if you are looking at this kit or this stamp set and you really love the look of these images, but you wish you could die cut them, you can always purchase the add-on die set. That would make die cutting any of these images for your projects so quick and easy. Okay. We are moving on to our third and final background panel. I'm loving how these are turning out. We're going to go in with our artichoke and kale one last time for any of our greenery areas. And then we will use honey, butter, nutmeg, and then we are going to use a little bit of the dew and yellow colors for the butterfly on this panel. One thing I noticed as I was working on this step of the project is I do think that for the backgrounds I created, our panel is a little too stark white for me. Our background's a little grungy. The pattern paper is a little grungy. Then we added the collage paper over the top, which just increased the grunginess of it. And because of this, I felt like I really should add some color to this white die cut area. My favorite way to do this, and I do this all the time when I'm making even like a bigger background, is to take a bigger blending brush then and go in with maybe the same colors or a very neutral color and just softly add color around the perimeter of the design, even going over some of the stenciled areas. That's not a big deal. We can totally do that. And I did start to do that. And as I was doing that, I thought, oh my gosh, I think I've messed this up again. It's a little too bright for me. I even started with the butter color and it looks gorgeous. Like on this, I was like, oh, this looks good. This will be fine. We definitely need to darken the edges a little bit. But when I hold it up next to the background, I was like, no, that's not quite right. So let's just switch to the honey color. So I did. I switched to the honey color and I hold it up to the background again. And again, it's a miss. That is like way too bright, even though I don't think honey is really a brightish color. So I quickly pivoted. We are not throwing this away. We're not starting over. Let's grab some Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink and go around the edges, which is what I did. Okay, after I have done that, it is time to do the next step in this process. In your kit, you are getting a 1 ounce jar of the Ranger Sparkle Texture Paste. I already have the Ranger Texture Paste, say that 5 times fast, in my stash. So I actually just opened the one I had because it was already previously opened. And I am applying that using the stencil and applying it right over the top of my stenciled florals and butterflies. And you might be looking at this going, oh girl, I think you just ruined your images. Well, the great thing about this sparkle texture paste, it goes on opaque, but when it dries, it's going to dry completely clear with sparkle. It's going to be nice and flat. These cards are still going to be very easily mailed because they don't have a huge profile, but yet we have all this amazing texture on all of our images. So I'm going to continue to do this for each. I highly recommend when working with your texture paste and your palette knife and your stencils, go wash all of those things immediately when you're finished. I also would suggest don't do what I did. I do have multiple images on each of these little cards. Let one dry. If you have dry time, let one dry at a time and then come back and do the next one. I was in a bit of a time crunch, so I am like, you can see me kind of holding the stencil up a little bit, trying to keep it out of the previously stenciled images. In fact, I did booger up, I think maybe this butterfly or one of the other ones, and I had to kind of put my stencil back in place and try to fix it. But it's not as easy this way. It's right here. I messed it up right there. So what I'm going to do is just put the stencil back and fix it. I did opt not to add anything to that small butterfly. I think right now, I think I'll wait a little bit and I'll come back and add it in a minute. But every image on here that's stamped, I went ahead and used the stencil, or each image, that was stenciled, I went back and applied the sparkle texture paste over the top. This can be done with any kind of similar image stencil set. It is a great way to add that subtle sparkle and shine to your images without changing the color. Yes, I did add this one. I did have to be super tricky. I'm just using a tiny touch. Okay, we are going to set these aside to dry. I went and had some lunch. I came back and they weren't completely all the way dry yet, but I am going to just do a little black splatter, very minimal over the top. We're grunging them up now. And then I walked away and I came back like, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes later, loved how this looked, thought, finally, I've got these where I want them. And we're going to take our backgrounds and kind of pull it all together now. So final steps for this card. As much as I love these, I still felt like the background is missing a little something. The gathered twigs definitely helped give me the right yellow tone over the butter and honey inks, but I wanted the edges to stand out a little bit more. So we are going to go in and add ground espresso just direct to paper around the edges. It's going to help draw your eye into those postage edges. And then I love that, but I felt like it needed just something else. So I do have an extra die cut panel of the postage edge die that we're going to layer back behind each. And that little touch of white is going to help tie into not only the white card base, but just kind of give your eye a little bit of a break from a very busy background. I'm using my favorite Simon Says Stamp top fold pre-cut and scored card bases, gluing down my pattern paper and collage paper background. You can see because I did these slightly smaller than A2 size, it gives us a perfect white border. Here is my stamped and stenciled panel, slightly offset from the white one, and we're going to glue these directly to the card. Now, a lot of times I would take this opportunity to pop it up with foam, but we have some awesome washi tape included in this kit, and I really thought it would look cute, almost like a field notes type of, like you're adding these little floral cards or something into a journal or art journal. I wanted it to look a little bit like that. So I am adding little touches of this washi tape in the yellow colorway. You get several rolls of it, but I picked the one I thought matched these cards the best. We're going to put a little bit up at the top, another little bit at the bottom. I'm just tearing them into sections and I love it. We do have one final thing that we're going to do, but let's put these other two cards together really quickly. Again, just taking my bone folder, making sure that it's scored really well, gluing the background down, gluing down our beautiful panels. so pretty. And if you need something to kind of help hold it flat, I love to use like my old acrylic blocks for this. That's mostly what I use those for anymore. I don't use them for stamping. I use a Misty stamp positioner, but I do find them super handy to kind of help hold things flat, hold things down as I'm working. And then I'm just picking which background I want to add these to, and we're going to finish up. Now, the final thing I want to add for each of my cards today is a scattering of gems. From my crafty stash, I took the gold Pawsitively Dazzling gems, and we are going to scatter these about, I don't know, 6, 7 of them per card. I like to hold those in, or place those, pardon, in a triangle tray. Use my Simon Says Stamp Embellishment wand to easily pick those up and pop those in place. The color of these gems perfectly matches my cards, and it gives them that final little touch of sparkle and also dimensional embellishment that I love. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this set of 3 cards featuring the Simon Says Stamp April 2025 card kit called Butterfly Blossoms. The supplies I used to create these 3 cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube for your convenience. Thank you guys so much for joining me for these mixed media cards, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.